Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought something as ordinary as folding laundry could turn into a moment I'd never forget. The hum of the washing machine filled the room that evening, and the scent of fresh detergent lingered in the air. It was quiet, too quiet, until I heard his footsteps coming down the hallway. I didn't even look up at first. I was halfway through folding his favorite shirt when his shadow covered the table. He leaned against the doorframe, watching me with that calm, unreadable look he always had when something was on his mind. "You've been at it for hours," he said softly, his voice almost teasing. I laughed it off and told him someone had to keep things in order. But when I glanced up again, I noticed the way his eyes lingered, not on the clothes, but on me. There was something in the air then, a shift I couldn't explain. He stepped closer, slowly, until he was standing right behind me. I could feel the warmth of his breath on the back of my neck, making it harder to focus on what I was doing. I tried to laugh it off, to keep folding, but my hands suddenly felt clumsy. "You're distracting me," I whispered, not daring to turn around. "That's the point," he murmured. The next moment felt like a blur, the soft rustle of clothes sliding from my hands, his steady grip when I turned to face him. The washing machine buzzed behind us, the sound growing louder, almost matching the quickening rhythm of my heartbeat. It wasn't just a room anymore, it was a storm waiting to happen. But right before anything could be said or done, the machine jolted, a small reminder of reality in the middle of that charged silence. He laughed quietly, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. "You always make simple things feel impossible," he said. And maybe he was right, because suddenly, it wasn't just about laundry anymore. It was about everything we hadn't said, everything we'd been holding back. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words never came. He leaned in just enough for me to feel the air change again, heavy, uncertain, electric. Then came a knock at the door. A real one. Loud. Unexpected. And just like that, we both froze. Who could it be at that hour? Why now? He stepped back slightly, eyes narrowing toward the hallway, and I felt the tension return, not just the kind that pulls people closer, but the kind that warns something is about to shift. Something we might not be ready for. What happens next is where the real story begins. The knock echoed again, this time louder, sharper, like whoever was outside wasn't planning to leave. I glanced at him, searching for a clue in his face, but he looked just as uncertain. The hum of the washing machine filled the silence between us, mixing with the sound of my heartbeat. I whispered, "Are you expecting someone?" He shook his head, his jaw tightening as he took a slow step toward the door. I stayed where I was, surrounded by half-folded clothes and the faint warmth he'd left behind. Something about the moment felt wrong, like the air had shifted again, but for a different reason now. He reached for the doorknob, paused, and looked back at me, almost as if asking silently whether he should open it. I nodded. The door creaked open, and a cold draft slipped inside. A woman's voice spoke from the hallway, too low for me to hear clearly. His expression changed, a quick flash of surprise before he stepped outside and pulled the door halfway closed behind him. I strained to listen, catching fragments of their conversation. Words like "you shouldn't be here" and "I had no choice" floated through the gap. My curiosity burned, but I stayed still, not wanting to intrude. After a minute, he came back inside, rubbing a hand over his face like he was trying to erase whatever just happened. "Just someone from work," he said quickly, but his tone didn't sound convincing. I wanted to believe him, but something in his eyes told me there was more. I tried to return to the laundry, pretending everything was normal, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The rhythm of folding and stacking felt mechanical now, a cover for all the questions building in my mind. Who was she? Why did she look so desperate? And why did he look guilty? He stood beside me again, closer than before, and for a while, neither of us spoke. The silence was thick, heavy with words unsaid. Finally, he sighed and said softly, "You don't have to worry." I met his gaze. "Then tell me the truth," I said. He hesitated, eyes searching mine like he was weighing how much to reveal. "It's complicated," he finally whispered. "But it's not what you think." That only made me more curious. I wanted to believe him, I really did, but part of me couldn't shake the feeling that something was unraveling between us, something that started long before tonight. The washing machine beeped behind us, snapping us both out of it. I turned away, pretending to check the cycle, but I could still feel his eyes on me, watching, waiting, as if afraid of what I might say next. When I looked up again, he was standing by the window, staring out into the dark. The street was empty, yet he seemed to be searching for something, or someone. That's when I realized, whatever secret he was hiding wasn't just his. Somehow, I was already part of it. The rest of that night felt heavier than usual. He barely spoke, just sat on the edge of the couch, lost in thought. I tried to act normal, pretending to sort the freshly washed clothes into neat piles, but I couldn't ignore how distant he'd become since that knock. Every few minutes, I'd catch him glancing toward the door like he was expecting it to happen again. Finally, I broke the silence. "You've been quiet," I said gently. "You want to talk about it?" He looked up, eyes tired but guarded. "There's nothing to talk about," he said. But the way his voice cracked near the end told me there was. When I pressed a little, he sighed and leaned back. "You ever have something from your past that just won't stay buried?" That question alone was enough to send a chill down my spine. I wanted to ask what he meant, but something in his tone warned me not to push too hard. Instead, I nodded slowly and said, "Yeah. I think everyone does." He smiled faintly, like he appreciated that answer, but then went quiet again. The tension in the room didn't fade, it just changed shape, from curiosity to unease. Later, as I cleaned up, I noticed something on the floor near the doorway, a small folded note, slightly crumpled. I picked it up, thinking it was just another receipt or piece of mail. But when I unfolded it, my chest tightened. It wasn't a letter from work. It was a handwritten message that said, "You can't hide forever. I know what you did." Before I could react, I heard his voice behind me. "Where did you find that?" I froze. "It was by the door," I said quietly. He walked over, snatched it gently from my hand, and tore it in half without a word. I wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but the look in his eyes stopped me. There was fear, not just guilt, real fear. "Who was that woman?" I finally asked. He looked away. "Someone who shouldn't have found me." I didn't know what that meant, but I knew one thing for sure, whatever he was caught up in, it wasn't over. And for some reason, I was now standing right in the middle of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound, the wind outside, the creak of the floor, even the hum of the fridge, felt louder, sharper. When I glanced toward the window, I thought I saw a shadow move past, quick and silent. Was it just my imagination? Or had she come back? The next morning, the house felt colder, not because of the weather, but because of the silence between us. He was up early, already dressed, pacing near the window like he'd been awake for hours. I watched him from the kitchen, the sound of the kettle the only thing breaking the quiet. When I asked if everything was okay, he said, "Yeah, just thinking." But his voice lacked conviction. I handed him a cup of coffee, hoping it would bring some warmth to the moment. "About that note," I said softly. "Are you sure it's nothing I should worry about?" He took the mug but didn't answer right away. "It's just someone from my past trying to scare me," he said finally. "It'll pass." But his eyes told a different story, one that didn't end with reassurance. I wanted to press him for the truth, but before I could, a car door slammed outside. He went completely still. I moved toward the window and saw the same woman from last night standing near the gate, looking straight at the house. Without a word, he set the mug down and walked to the door. I followed him halfway, staying close enough to listen but far enough to not interfere. When he stepped outside, the woman raised her voice just enough for me to catch fragments again. "You can't pretend forever," she said. "They'll find out." "They don't need to," he shot back. She laughed bitterly. "You think keeping secrets will save you?" Something about her tone sent a chill through me. I wanted to open the door wider, to hear everything, but before I could, she noticed me standing there. Her gaze met mine, sharp, accusing, like I was part of something I didn't even understand. Then she turned and walked away, her heels echoing down the path until the sound faded completely. He came back inside, face pale. "She's gone," he muttered. I took a deep breath. "You're going to have to tell me what this is about sooner or later," I said quietly. He hesitated, then finally met my eyes. "If I do," he said, "you'll never look at me the same way again." That single sentence changed the air in the room. I didn't know whether to be afraid or just heartbroken. He looked like a man fighting ghosts, ghosts that had followed him here, right into our home. Later that night, I found his phone buzzing on the table. One message flashed across the screen before it disappeared: "You have until tonight. Tell her, or I will." My heart raced. Tell me what? What was he hiding that someone would go this far to expose? He walked back in before I could process it, eyes locked on mine, realizing I'd seen it. And in that quiet, breathless moment, I knew the truth was coming, whether I was ready or not. He stood there, frozen, the glow from his phone screen fading between us. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air felt heavy, like even the silence was holding its breath. I could see the panic flicker across his face, the kind that comes when there's no more hiding left to do. "You read it, didn't you?" he asked quietly. I nodded. "Who's sending those messages?" He ran a hand through his hair and turned away. "It's not what you think," he said, but his voice cracked again, the same way it did before every half-truth. I didn't move closer this time. I just watched as he paced, muttering under his breath, trying to piece together something that clearly terrified him. Finally, I said, "Then tell me. Whatever it is, I can handle it." He stopped and looked at me, and for the first time since that night, I saw something raw in his eyes, not anger, not fear, but regret. "You shouldn't have been here tonight," he said softly. "None of this was supposed to reach you." "What does that even mean?" I asked. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed again. Another message appeared. This time, he didn't try to hide it. The screen read, "Too late. She deserves to know everything. Check the drive under your name." Without thinking, I walked to the small table near the wall, the one where he kept his keys and a few old envelopes. A flash drive sat there, half hidden under a stack of papers. My hands trembled as I picked it up. "This one?" I asked. He didn't answer. His silence said enough. When I plugged it into the laptop, a folder opened immediately. Inside were photos, old ones, of him with the same woman from last night. But these weren't friendly snapshots. They looked serious. Some were taken at what seemed like an office, others in dark hallways, parking lots, even late-night meetings. Then I noticed one photo that made my stomach drop, him standing near a car that matched hers, but behind them was something else, a police barricade, flashing lights, and a blurred body being carried away. I turned to him, voice barely steady. "What happened that night?" He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. "It wasn't supposed to end like that," he said. She and we were trying to expose something. But it went wrong. Someone got hurt. The words echoed in my head. Expose something? Hurt. It didn't make sense. I wanted to believe he wasn't dangerous, that he hadn't done anything unforgivable. But the fear in his voice told me there was still more to the story, something darker, something he was still hiding. Then came another sound, a knock. Not like before. This one was slow, deliberate, almost rehearsed. He froze. "Don't move," he whispered. But I was already walking toward the door, heart pounding, drawn by curiosity and dread all at once. As I reached for the handle, he grabbed my wrist. His eyes were wild now. "If you open that door," he said, voice trembling, "everything will change." I stared at him, torn between trust and fear. The knocking stopped, followed by a faint voice outside, one that sounded hauntingly familiar. It was her. The same woman. But this time, she wasn't alone. The air was so still that even the ticking clock felt louder. The voice outside called his name again, firm this time, almost demanding. I looked at him, and he shook his head slowly. "Don't open it," he whispered. But something in me couldn't stay still anymore. I pulled my wrist free and stepped toward the door before he could stop me. When I opened it, the woman was standing there, her expression pale and exhausted. But what caught my attention was the man beside her, dressed in a dark jacket, holding a small badge that glinted under the porch light. "We need to talk," he said calmly. "It's about him." I turned to look back at the man I thought I knew. His shoulders had dropped, the fight gone from his eyes. He didn't even argue. "I told you this would happen," he murmured. The man with the badge stepped forward. "You were part of an internal investigation 3 years ago. You disappeared after that night," he said firmly. "You knew too much." I blinked, trying to understand. "Knew too much about what?" I asked. The woman sighed. "We worked together," she said softly. "We tried to expose a company for hiding illegal operations, and people died because of it. He ran before they could silence him too. I thought he was gone for good." My mind spun. Everything, the secrecy, the messages, the fear, finally made sense. But what didn't make sense was why they were here now. He stepped closer, voice calm but heavy. "They found me again," he said. "And now, they'll come for anyone close to me." The agent reached into his coat and handed me a small drive. "This is the proof," he said. "It clears his name, but it puts yours at risk if you stay." For a moment, the world went silent. He looked at me, eyes soft now, almost pleading. "You don't have to stay," he said. "You could walk away tonight, forget all of this." But I didn't move. Something in me knew that walking away wouldn't erase the truth. I held his gaze and whispered, "Then we face it together." The agent nodded. "Then you'd better move fast," he said. "They're already on their way." The sound of tires screeching outside broke the stillness. Lights flashed through the window, headlights, not police ones. He grabbed my hand, and before I could think, we ran out the back door. The night air hit cold and sharp as engines roared behind us. And then, just as we reached the woods, another figure stepped out from the darkness. It was the same woman. But this time, she wasn't looking at him. She was looking at me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "He's not who you think he is." The world seemed to stop. Who was she talking about? And what truth was still left untold? Her words hit me like cold rain. "He's not who you think he is." The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the tension between us. He turned to her, anger flashing in his eyes. "Don't do this," he said through clenched teeth. But she stepped closer, her face full of sorrow. She deserves to know the truth, she said quietly. My heart pounded as I looked between them, waiting for someone to speak. What truth? I asked, my voice trembling. She took a breath. He wasn't just running from them, she said. He was part of it once. Before he tried to expose it, he helped build the system that hurt people. That's why they want him silenced. He knows too much because he was one of them. For a moment, everything around me blurred, the trees, the headlights, even the night itself. I turned to him, hoping she was wrong, but the way he looked at the ground told me otherwise. It's true, he finally whispered. But I tried to fix it. I couldn't live with what they did. The woman lowered her voice. You still have a choice. Leave with her and disappear, or come with us and finish what you started. He looked at me, eyes filled with guilt, love, and something deeper, surrender. If I go with them, it's over for us, he said softly. I didn't know what to say. My chest ached, torn between fear and forgiveness. Then do what's right, I whispered. Even if it means losing me. He smiled faintly, brushing a hand across my cheek before stepping back. You were the only thing that ever felt real, he said. Then he turned and walked toward the woman, disappearing into the night. Weeks passed before I heard from anyone again. A plain envelope arrived one morning, no name, no address, just a single photo inside, him, standing by the ocean, alive. On the back were 5 words in his handwriting, we finished what we started. I smiled through tears, realizing some endings aren't about staying together, they're about finally setting things right.